So, I arrived yesterday from San Francisco at Vienna Airport. Myself and two other speakers are being picked up by an awesome volunteer of the event, and we've been driving together to this event. So the volunteer, listened to us babbling on, getting to know each other for a while, and then after about an hour of drive, he turns around and he's like, guys, can I ask you a question? What the fuck did the organizers do to convince you to come to Graz and speak at this event? And I told him, can I ask you a question? What the fuck did they do to convince you to be a volunteer? That's actually going to be the main point of this talk today, how to accomplish things other people would never dare to even attempt, all right? So actually, to make this talk a lot more challenging for myself, yesterday, with another group of volunteers, I had this crazy idea that they should bring tomatoes to my talk. And if I suck, I told them specifically to actually throw them at me. Are you guys here today, just so I know? There you go, over there. Tomato throwers. I've been thinking the entire time, what can I say to piss them off to actually throw a tomato? It's not that easy, but if I accomplish that, it would be pretty exciting. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about myself first. So I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I'm originally from Greece, born and raised in Germany, and I moved to Silicon Valley about 8 years ago. I'm totally unemployable. I've never had a job in my life. I've been an entrepreneur my whole career because of a lack of options. And the last thing that I've done on my latest venture started off as a company called Elastic Sales, where what we did is in the heart of Silicon Valley, we built kind of a secret sales lab, and we were doing sales and helping new startups, tech startups, to innovate in their sales and business models and scale up their sales as quickly as possible. And I personally work with over 200 venture-backed startups that raised billions to help them grow their sales. In the process of building that company, we actually built a piece of software called Close.io, which is our internal secret sauce, software that helped our salespeople outperform other salespeople. And just recently, we released that software to the world to help other startups grow, and it's been a pretty fantastic ride. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, and when it comes to hustling sales, it's something that's very, very near and dear to my heart. All right, so let's get started. Let me first tell you the way that I think about entrepreneurship and startups. So here's what a startup actually really looks like and feels like when you're an entrepreneur. You're at a cliff with a group of people. Everybody has a couple of parts of an airplane in their hand, and you all, on three, jump off the cliff. And then the task is to actually assemble the minimal viable pieces of that airplane before you crash the ground and die, so you just take off just in the last second before you die. Most startups don't make it. They don't. If you are lucky and you make it, once you've taken off, now the task is to piece together the pieces to be actually able to navigate that thing and direct it. And once you have that, you have to put together the pieces to be able to land it. Once you've landed, awesome. Now the easy part, you go out, you paint the motherfucker, you make it look nice, and you either sell it or you find a way to make money with it. You lease it out, you rent it, you turn it into a profitable business. That's what the entrepreneurial journey is. Sounds exciting and awesome, right? Not while you're approaching the ground. Fuck no, you're terrified, right? So it takes a certain kind of character to want to be an entrepreneur. It takes somebody who wants to go out there and do things that other people would not dare to do. And I'll give you some tools, some stories on how to actually accomplish that. Let's start with the first story, right? So how do somebody who has no fucking clue about technology, knows nobody, has no money, knows nothing, gets to Silicon Valley, and actually, after a few years now, runs a profitable, high-growth startup that has raised millions, that is making millions, and could be considered a success from a specific perspective, right? I'm talking about myself. So how do you do that? Like, I have no college degree. I knew nobody or nothing. My English was horrible. How the fuck did I make it to Silicon Valley? The most competitive entrepreneurial environment in the world. Very easy. I just sold everything and bought a one-way ticket. As simple as that. I arrived at SFO and I asked somebody, how do you get to Silicon Valley? And for those who don't know, Silicon Valley is not a city. It's an area. It's like saying, how do I get to like the south of whatever, a specific area? There's multiple suburbs that make up Silicon Valley. So the person looked at me and was like, I don't know, I mean, do you want to go to Stanford? I'm like, Stanford, I've heard of that. Yeah, well, take the train and go there. Here's what I did. The first night I arrived, I was exhausted, I was excited, I was a little terrified. So what I wanted to do, my internal instinct was to just go to sleep. It's like, it's my first day, Silicon Valley, just take it easy, Steli, just go and sleep. Just enjoy the hotel. And then my little voice in my head said, fuck that, that's the stupidest thing you could do. You're in Silicon Valley, go out and meet people, make some friends. I was like, fuck, all right. I went online, I looked up an event, I went to that event, I sat next to Robert Scoble, it's a famous blogger. I tell him, I'm like, hey, I just fresh off the boat, I just arrived in Silicon Valley, I don't know anybody. It's like, awesome, give me a call tomorrow. Next day, I give him a call, I'm all nervous. Hey, Mr. Robert Scoble. He's like, which hotel are you staying? Oh, Hotel California. All right, I'll pick you up in 10 minutes. Okay. He arrives there, we go to a coffee shop, we sit down, and then he's like, oh, stop. Goes to his car, brings out a massive camera set, sets it up, and is like, all right, let's do an interview. So who are you? That interview is the most painful thing in my life to watch. It's 60 minutes of me looking like a fucking idiot. And I watch it once a year, just to humble myself, just to keep myself grounded. So the crazy thing is, after the interview, he tells me, hey, we're gonna go to this event, I'm gonna speak, what's your plan for the rest of the day? I'm like, a plan for the rest of the day? I don't have a plan for the rest of the year. It's like, all right, come with me. We go to this event, he speaks, a bunch of other people speak, and at the end of the event, they have a 30-second soapbox. Everybody can get the mic for 30 seconds, and usually people will be like, we're raising money, or I'm trying to hire somebody. I go over there, I take the mic, and I'm like, I need friends. It's my first day in America. I know nobody. If you want a weird guy from Greece with the German accent and something, just come over there and say hi. At the end of the event, there were the 3 speakers surrounded by people, and myself surrounded by people, got 40 business cards, and we were off to the races. I couldn't meet enough people, right? So how do you get to Silicon Valley and you make it with no background, no knowledge, no clue, no money? You just fucking show up. Right? You show up because you know what? Most people don't. Most people think about things and they go, oh, it's going to be fucking hard. You know, I could fail, so let's not just do it. But all right, so this is my story, right? This is me bragging. I did this amazing thing, how to become a founder. Let's talk about when you're not a founder. Like, how do you get a job at a place? Here's the story of my first intern. That guy hired himself and then became a co-founder of that business. And here's how it happened. The guy saw our business online, and he started emailing me. And then eventually, he scheduled a Skype call. He was in a university in Germany at that point. He was a student. We have a Skype call. We talk about the business. And at the end of the Skype call, the motherfucker says, oh, you're super busy right now, right? What can you say? No? I'm like, yeah, we're drowning in work. It's like, oh, cool. And he hangs up. 4 weeks later, I get an email. Hey, Steli, since you're so busy, I thought I'd drop out of college. My flight to SFO arrives tomorrow at 9 a.m. It would be really nice if you pick me up, but I can also take the train. I'm excited about my first day at your company. What the fuck do you say to someone like that? No? He took a flight to San Francisco. I'm like, okay, I guess we hired an intern. The guy showed up, and he worked his ass off every day. Like, I had a larger team, and sometimes people that were more senior, they would argue they wanted the co-founder title and all this shit. This guy didn't give a fuck. He just showed up every day. He hustled every day for a year, for 2 years. Eventually, I would go to events, and people would be like, oh, you work for Björn? I'm like, he isn't the founder of the event? No, but people associated our company with him because he was just everywhere. And he was, like, busting his ass off. And then eventually, I was like, I guess you're my co-founder. I don't know. Right? So how do you hire yourself and become the co-founder of the fucking company? You don't ask for permission. Right? You don't. You just fucking show up. If you want something, go take it. Don't wait around. Most people are like, well, I would really like to have this thing. Can you please give it to me? Why don't you give it to me? I really want it. I think I deserve it. Please give it to me. That motherfucker was like, well, this is what I want. Just give it to me. All right? Now, he actually deserved it. He put in the work. He never asked me about a title. He never asked me about salary, equity, nothing. Never once did we have that discussion. At some point, I was so guilted. I was like, you need more equity. Can I give you a title? Like, we need to do something here. You're amazing, right? He never cared about that shit. He just showed up and fucking kicked ass every fucking day. All right, so now you know how to be a founder in Silicon Valley. You know how to get hired and become a co-founder of it. How do you get your first customers? All right, so especially when you have nothing, like no website, no credibility, no product, not even a team. How do you get paying customers? Not even just paying customers and a waiting list of other paying customers. I'll tell you quickly the story of how we started Elastic Sales, company helping other startups scale sales. So when we had the idea for that business, it was a Tuesday, and we said, you know what, let's not fuck around. Let's not come up with a brand. Let's not put together a website. Let's not come up with a presentation. Let's not jerk off in our minds about how awesome this is. Let's not research about the market. No, let's go out and let the market educate us if this is a good idea or not, right? So Tuesday morning, we had this idea. On Wednesday, what we did is we went out there and we started selling that thing. And we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do something really unsexy. We're going to cold call startups that have raised a Series A, so at least more than 2 million, that we don't know, no personal connection. We're going to use fake names because we didn't want the world to know that we're thinking about this idea yet. We were doing something else very publicly. And if we can convince one startup to consider paying us after doing 2 or 3 weeks of cold calling, without having no name, no brand name, no references, no nothing, maybe there's something onto this idea. We might want to pursue it. I'm going to actually run through this really fast because I'm lagging behind on time. But this is the actual script we used to kickstart the business. Word by word, this is the script. Here's what we did. I would call somebody and we would open up by saying, hey, my name is Steve, something Steli, yeah? Steve, I'm calling, a few startups in the Bay Area to see if they might be a good fit for a potential beta program that we're running. So here's the important thing about that first sentence. When you call somebody, cold call somebody, they don't know who the fuck you are. And when somebody calls you, you don't know them, you don't know who they are. So your first question is, who the fuck is this? Right? Who is this? What do they want? Can I hang up already? Right? That's all you think. So when you cold call somebody, you can't start blabbing on about your idea. Well, we're doing a social network, virtual reality, group chat app that's... Nobody's hearing you. They're like, who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is this? Can I get off the phone? Can I get off the phone? Right? So you have to answer those questions first. So first you say, hey, this is my name. I'm calling startups in the area. That's suggesting I might be similar to you. I might also be local. All that builds rapport. And then I said, to see if you might be a fit for a potential beta program. Not if you want to buy our fucking product, but if you are a fit, if this actually works for both, a beta program. I'm speaking their lingo. They probably had a beta program. So I established a little bit of rapport. I might know what I'm talking about. I might be a startup in a local area. And then once I answered who I am and why they should listen to me for one more sentence, I give them what I do in one sentence. Not a paragraph, not a book, not a chapter, a sentence, right? Oh, but we have such a great thing, it can't be described in a sentence. Fuck you, right? Everything can be described in one sentence, just not perfectly. So what we would say is, hey, what we do in a sentence is, and I said in a sentence so I could calm them down and like, this is not gonna take forever. This answers the question, how long is this fucking going to take? Not forever, right? In a sentence, what we do is we'll offer startups a sales team on demand. Does that in general sound interesting to you? Now at this point, if they said yes, I said, awesome, tell me about your sales process. If they said no, I said, awesome, tell me about your sales process. And when they said maybe, I said, curious, tell me about your sales process. Now, it's not that I didn't care at all about if it's a good fit for them. I just didn't care at that moment because both them and us, we both didn't have enough information to know if it's a fit or not. But I needed to give them an opportunity to verbalize what they think, again, so that I actually have their mind share. So if they think no, I cannot just keep going on and talking because they think, no, fuck you, I want to hang up, this is not for me. So I have to let them say it, no, and then I can continue the conversation because now it's off their mind and it's blank, and I can now fill it with something else. So now we would go through the questions to ask them to actually explore, could this work for them or not? I really wanted to know. And once we actually arrived at a point where it could work, we would actually go to schedule another call and try to close the deal. So this script, cold calling startups, fake names, no website, no brand, no nothing, got us 7 companies that wanted to work with us. We couldn't fucking service 7 companies. We didn't have enough salespeople. So we picked 2 random companies that seemed very different to test. And we're like, well, now we have to do it. Let's see if we can actually deliver this. And with a bunch of customers on the waiting list. So this is how you actually get started with customers. Now, and I have to really speed up. So now, how do you get an investor? Now, okay, you got to Silicon Valley, you're a founder, you get a job from an intern to this, you got some customers, but investors, what if you want to get the attention of somebody that's a billionaire, right? And you follow up with them 47 times, and they ignored you. Some of you might think, I would never follow up 47 times. Do you not have any self-esteem? No. No. I'm not getting paid for self-esteem. I'm not in it for self-esteem. I'm in it for growth. I'm in it for creating value. I'm in it for challenging myself, not for self-esteem. That ship sailed when I asked people to bring tomatoes. So here's what you do when somebody ignores you for 47 follow-ups. You sent the 48th one. Here's my simple philosophy on follow-ups. And this is only if I meet people in person. Disclaimer, right? Don't send 100 emails if you've never met somebody. But if you met somebody, a customer, investor, something, and it was a good conversation, a good first connection, and you follow up with them to set up the second meeting or the third or whatever it is, and they go silent, most people start assuming shit. They're like, oh, I guess they didn't like the product after all. Screw them. Or whatever it is, they just put, or they get all like self-conscious about, oh my God, I think they didn't like what we did. I think they thought I suck, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not in the business of assumptions. If we have a personal relationship, if we met and I email you and you don't respond to me, my assumption is you're fucking busy. You have a life, you have something else to do, there was a crisis, something is happening. So I'm gonna keep following up until you tell me, yes, no, or fuck off. If you tell me to stop following up, I'll stop following up. I'm not gonna bother you. But in a professional relationship, I'm not just gonna stop communicating to you because you haven't replied. There was an investor, his product you've all used, billionaire. We got another investor who's a good friend of his. He connected us. He responds to that connection email and says, great, I wanna meet Steli. I'm like, yeah. I'm sending him an email, hey, do we wanna meet Tuesday or Thursday? Silence. You know, another follow-up, another follow-up, another follow-up. 48 fucking follow-ups. You know what his response was? Oh my God, Steli, I'm so glad you followed up. You know, I traveled around the world, there was this big crisis going on, blah, 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 this and that. Can we meet up tomorrow? We met up tomorrow, he invested. You know, when you go outside your comfort zone, you do things that other people don't do, you create results other people don't, right? Follow-up is where winning happens. Showing up is the first half, and very few people do. But even from the people that show up, most of them will not follow up and follow through. If you do both, winning is the only possible outcome. All right, Jesus. So now you have an investor. Now let's talk about, all right, now I have to make a really hard choice. But I'm going to have to jump over a few slides here to get to, I think, one of the most important parts. But the first part was all about, like, how do you get a founder? How do you, start a company? How do you get customers? How do you get investors? But how do you use hustle to get yourself out of shit? Because you constantly are going to be in shitty situations as an entrepreneur, right? What happens if your company has a contract with a large organization and eventually you figure out, oh, we totally changed our model, we have to do something completely different. That contract makes no sense anymore, and we cannot afford to keep paying these people, or we are dead as a company. You know, we crashed before we were able to put together the wings. What do you do then? You have to negotiate. But how did you negotiate when you're a nobody and you talk to a large company and you signed a contract that you have to pay that money? Here's the one most effective negotiation tactic I can give you guys to almost out-negotiate anyone if you have the mental strength to do it. And any single person can do this. You just shut the fuck up. Yeah, that's easy, right? I can shut the fuck up. I do it all the time. You know, through the whole night, I don't talk. No, but in the right situation, it's actually really, really, really hard to shut the fuck up. So here's what's happening. The scenario is actually real. Our company had a contract. We couldn't get out of it. I tried everything. They didn't let me out of the fucking contract. Eventually, I hustled. I got one of our investors to reach out to one of their board members. That board member sent an email to the account executive that was responsible for our deal and told him, motherfucker, be nice to these people. So eventually, the guy was telling me the entire time, oh, the bad guys from finance, they don't let me. I would like to help you, but fuck you, pay me, right? I don't care about your situation. Give me the money. There's a contract. Eventually, he gets that email from the board. My phone rings. I pick up the phone. The guy's like, hey, Steli, blah, 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 do you have a minute? Blah, blah, I have a great news, a really great news. You don't have to pay the full $250,000. I really work with finance and everybody. I championed your cause. Of course, I knew that was bullshit. And, you know, I think that we can get it down from $250,000 to $50,000. Shit. That fucks my whole story with the silence. I was silent. And then eventually he says, you know what? Because it was November, if you could actually wait for 2 more months, it's the new calendar year in January, I could get it down from $50,000 to $25,000, right? So we went from $250,000 to $25,000 to $50,000 to $25,000. And all I had to say at that point, once he out-negotiated himself, was, sure, $25,000 generally works for us. All right, so while you guys are gonna ask questions, I'm gonna have pictures of my kids, because I want to make them famous. They're my rock stars. It's my 2-year-old, my 2-month-old, 2 months. And here they are together, 2 little co-founders. Thanks, guys.